When it comes to posting about restaurants online, one of the things that really hurts is when I see a place that I post recently about just close. It's something that's been happening going all the way back to the derryx blog, which I started back in 2010. So what I wanted to do today was take a case study of a place that we went to in the Outer Banks and kind of talk about what happened when I posted the video about it back in 2021, and then show some updated footage for those of you who are watching and not listening along, but I'll narrate as I do that as well, of going back in 2022 to just show you the difference of what it looked like and how unfortunate that was. And then what I'll do is I'll pull in a few examples. There was one actually that happened recently, as in the last couple of months, where a place I posted about just a few weeks after I had posted about it on YouTube Shorts, just completely closed up. So let me jump right into this discussion today. And I want to talk about what you saw in the thumbnail, which is a place called Mako's Beach Bar and Grill. You can see from the video, if you
I'm not
check
going to
that
have an
out,
happy ending.
that I just clicked the wrong thing. You can see from watching the video that it was a pretty healthy place. The What I liked about this place, Mako's, was that it was very much themed around, like, the beach and going to on a ship and all that type of stuff. It was a pretty cool place inside. They had like a nice bar with some LED lights. You can tell the place had been there for a really long time, and it had a lot of charm to it. One of the things that we liked was there was like a shark in the ceiling, like an anamorphic that didn't move, but it was like a shark. And they had this awesome fish tank, which was really fun. And we went there, and we as we were sitting there, Cassie was kind of researching the menu, and you could see here this is like built like a ship. And researching the menu, and what she saw on Google was that the one of the reviews indicated that the place was closing like a couple of weeks after we had gone. Maybe it was a couple of months. I don't remember, but they had announced that they were ending their service, which was unfortunate because, first of all, I'm there. I'm at the Outer Banks. One of the things that I wanted to do here was take video of a lot of the places and kind of, get into a little bit of dining at the Outer Banks, because I had never gone in 2021. That was our first trip. So I wanted to highlight some places, and we had done some research and found this place. And what I liked about Mako's was that it was like taking a trip back in time. It was very much like Red Lobster was in the late 80s, which is kind of fun. If you think about it, you go down to a coastal place, you want to have some nice seafood meals. And from there, it was a lot of nostalgia. I think when you're on a family trip and you have a young child, that nostalgia and creating those kind of memories is one of the goals, at least for me as a dad. We go on vacations, and I want Noah to remember a lot of the good things, and food is a good way of using that to using food is a good way to create the memories, because you have that sense of community, and you can kind of attach what you were eating and the experience of the dining to, hey, I was on that trip, and remember, there was that shark in the ceiling. So the way I had timed out the video posting when we had gotten back, and this was later in 2021, when I posted the video about Mako's, it ended up being like literally the night before their final day of service. And one of the things that I like to do is include kind of a social media post that accompanies my my videos, so that if a place wants to share, they can they can share it along with their followers. And obviously that's to help with exposure for my YouTube channel and what I'm trying to do. But also, something I struggle with is how much of this do I make as honest review, and how much of I do I make as like something for the business to use. I'm not trying to do free advertising. That's kind of my point. But still, it's always cool to see a restaurant, somebody post about a restaurant online, and my reviews get a lot more fun when the owners actually get involved and you start to see the things being shared. um anyway, I'm kind of diverging from the point. But when I started the video, I'm going to play just a section of it. And you can check that out. It'll be in the show notes. And I'll link to it at the end of this video if you're watching or listening in the replay. But if when I play this video, you'll hear the first things I say are, where is it? I muted it. I hit the wrong button.
It's not going to have a happy. Now this one is not going to have a happy ending.
So it didn't have a happy ending because we knew that I recorded at the beach house, and we had known at that point that the restaurant was closing, and it hurt me because I recorded all this footage, and then we find out that the place was no longer going to be in business. Now, when I went back in 2022, and I'm still catching up on Outer Banks videos. I think the latest thing I posted on YouTube was Outer Banks video, but you can see the place is really kind of run down. It was almost abandoned. There is kind of a bright lining to this because the building will be used for something, or at least the property will be used for something that's going to be useful. But that was the building, and then you can kind of see there's where the shark was, and then the sign was completely empty, which I used in the thumbnail. And that was one of those things that it was kind of sad to see when we were driving by to go somewhere else. And I'm like, hey, let me just stop here real quick and grab some quick footage, and maybe I can use that on YouTube or on the podcast sometime. But that's kind of an aside. But this whole thing about restaurants closing after I review them has been a thing since 2010. And I want to get into it a little bit because even the first restaurant that I ever posted about for derryx Dines in 2010, it was a place called Garden Bistro 24 in Colony, New York. That place is no longer there. We still have Garden Bistro 24 in the area in Slingerlands, but the location that I went to and was the first inspiration for me starting to post about restaurants on my blog in 2010 was a place called Garden Bistro 24, and it's not there. Then I think the second place that I posted for derryx Dines was a place called Ilium Cafe in Troy, New York. And I tried to go back to the blog archive, but there's some kind of issue with the way things are tagged, and I can't see all the way back to that particular time. But I do know that was the second post, and we had gone to Ilium Cafe the week that they opened, and it was fun because they had like roast beef sandwiches and stuff, and they also had sushi, which I thought was really interesting. They had an antipasto sushi roll, which was cold cuts rolled with sushi rice and kind of cut into sushi, and the dipper on the side was Italian dressing, and they even served it with chopsticks, which to me was a fun little thing, and it was something that was remarkable and what I really wanted the blog to be about, and now the YouTube channel. But that place closed. Then we went to another place called the Judge's Inn, which was also in Troy. And I remember that place because the meal was deplorable. It was absolutely horrible. And the Judge's Inn used to be where Bootleggers is in Troy on Broadway, kind of across from the confectionery and Little Peck's and whatever all that stuff is. So this place, I had ordered, they had like Irish themed meals, and I had ordered some kind of like corned beef pizza thing. It was not good. And when it closed, it was no surprise that place had closed, which again was unfortunate. I never want to see a place close, even if the meals are bad. There's an audience for every experience. That might not have been my experience, but another one of these things where go to a place, post about it, and then the restaurant closes. There have been countless other examples of that going back to the blog days. But even recently, and this was another unfortunate one, I had recorded a series of shorts for a place called Charlie's Street Food in Galleria 7 Market, which is one of my favorite markets in the area. They're right near my house, and they have it's like a upscale food court. And I recorded a bunch of stuff, and in the process of editing, and at that point, I was about 3 or 4 weeks behind in terms of what I had filmed versus when it was going to be posted to the public. Within that time, I'd found out that guy had a last day of service for his stand, which to me was a little bit unfortunate because it's like, oh, geez, now do I post about the food, or do I just hold back on this stuff because it's it's a moot point. It's not going to be of service for anybody. But I figured there was still enough time left over after I had posted it for people to go check the place out, because this guy had amazing wings. He had these wings where he would toss them in a sauce that was almost like a General Tso's chicken sauce, like nice little spicy, sweet, umami, really good stuff. He also had like banh mi sandwiches and pho broth, like soups and stuff like that. So I figured there was plenty of time for people to check it out in seeing my YouTube shorts. And I think I made 4 or 5 shorts about that place. But even after that, there's been kind of some unfortunate falling out between the Galleria 7 and the owner of that place. But I think that guy who I think the guy who ran that place is actually going to land somewhere, and he's going to open with the same kind of concept, from what I understand. But again, not trying to get involved in the drama there, but another place where go to it and it closes. And I wanted to kind of correlate it back to kind of what the ethos is for the channel here. And this kind of is the point of what I'm trying to say today. And from there, this is kind of the main message for what I want to say. What I'm trying to do here on YouTube and on social media is to highlight kind of the good and the bad experiences and help you kind of find the good stuff. If we go to Red Lobster or Olive Garden all the time, they're going to be safe experiences. I'm not down on chains by any means. I love chains. I went to Taco Bell last week. I've gone to Burger King. I'll go to a chain any time of day, especially in a new area. If I don't have kind of my traction, and I'm done research about places to go that are really good in the area, it's kind of difficult to commit to a mom and pop shop when you don't know the area. And I get that. And I get that comfort, especially when traveling, is what a lot of people kind of rely on. But the nature of what I'm trying to do here is highlight these smaller businesses. Most of what I post about is from smaller businesses. I think I have a stretch of things that, because I'm doing vacation content, are a little bit more wider appealing and not locally based. But even in those, I in California, I went to a taqueria that was like a hole in the wall, but there's thousands of hole in the wall places. So, it's more about the experience rather than the place when I post about a lot of these things. A lot of these menu items are things that you could find at multiple places. So if I try it at one place, it kind of gives you a reference point for if you were to try it. Hey, how does it compare to his? What did he think about his? And what do I think about mine? And that's kind of the discussion that I want to get going. But the nature of that is that restaurants don't stay open. And that's kind of an unfortunate thing, especially after the last 3 years, things that have been going on. It's difficult to keep a restaurant running. And I get that. You can see the prices coming through, increases. Distributors are increasing the prices of things. We heard a few months ago that eggs were at a ridiculous level. Chicken was at a ridiculous level. And I got to go on a little bit of a rant about that. Back a couple of years ago, they were saying, hey, there's a shortage. Back a couple of years ago, they were saying, hey, there's a shortage on chicken wings. Switch to thighs. Last time I counted, there was the same number of wings and thighs per bird. So I don't know what they were getting at, unless these things were kind of stored worldwide, where people weren't buying thighs, and we have these things stockpiled and you can use those instead. But that was one of those things. I'm like, I don't know. I raised an eyebrow for what I was thinking. I didn't really get it. But it's kind of, you can see, and most places don't succeed, especially new places. There's kind of a statistic. I should have looked this up before the podcast here, but we're hanging out, and this is kind of supposed to be a little bit more chill and not really structured or fast paced or anything. But I think a third of restaurants that open kind of don't go past their first year. And that's one of those unfortunate realities. Is a lot of people who get into the restaurant business don't know much about it, or they do, and they don't really understand um their target, and they may not be positioned properly or promoting properly or anything like that. It could also be just the nature of, hey, if we're serving this thing and the prices are too high, it doesn't match the demographics for who's walking through the door. So there's a lot. And coming from a family business, my family's business, my dad's deli in upstate New York, which was just far enough outside of the city and just niche enough that people who were from the city couldn't, didn't want to go all the way to the city. So it was a good timing in the mid 80s for my dad to have had that business after learning about it in the city. Nowadays that business is not at all relevant. And my dad retired a few years ago. My uncle closed a shop a couple of years ago too. But you can get most of what we sold in the store at ShopRite or Price Chopper nowadays. Not all, because we have kind of um we have they had some relationships with a few uh distributors, and we're getting actual imported stuff, whereas here you can work with Boar's Head and get imported prosciutto, or even Boar's Head prosciutto. Anyway, I'm digressing, but it is difficult. It is running a restaurant is difficult. So restaurants are going to close. That doesn't discourage me from highlighting the places I think are good. Part of the problem that I have, and I'm going to wrap it up after I kind of talk about this last point and get into a few of the comments. I'm watching the live chat and see you guys chatting there, and it really warms my heart because that's kind of what I want this to be, community. I want you guys to come in, hang out, get to know each other, get to know me, and we can all kind of mingle. But because I'm on this hamster wheel of, okay, I got to figure out what video to make next, and I got to produce that video. Do I do shorts? Do I do longs? Do I do podcasts? It kind of makes it difficult for me to kind of revisit on a personal level some of these real places that I really love. While I was producing the La Capital Tacos video, just from the nature of sitting here at the computer and working on the video, I had gotten in the mood for those tacos tons of times. Since I posted that video, I haven't been able to go back, just because we went on our trip, and I'm trying to go to different places. I'm trying to get back on some local content and mix in some of my vacation content. And there's also family dining in there as well. And it just makes it hard. I find these great places and I can't visit them on the frequency that I'd like to. And sometimes that means that if I post about a place, it ain't going to be there. And that hurts, because most of what I post about are good things. So that's kind of my little rant about why are places closing after I go to them. And it kind of comes down to just statistics, and it's just the nature of doing restaurant stuff. I noticed that I see Randall and Roz in the chat here, and you guys are having a nice little conversation. Randall says, there was a cute Indian spot that burned down after I ate there a year ago. It's still just a hole in the ground. That's another thing. About 2 months ago, there's a Chinese restaurant that I frequent every Monday because I work from home, and it's just an easy spot 5 minutes away. I can grab Chinese food. Right across the street, there was a building that was a total loss. It just burned completely down to the ground. And looking, every time I pick up my food, I look across the street at that place, and I'm like, I don't think it was a restaurant, but just that hole in the ground just makes it. I hate seeing it, because it's just something could be there and something could be thriving. We got Roz. People tell me how I could sell certain things I make, or that I should open a restaurant. But being a good cook or baker doesn't mean that one can run a business. It's a whole different thing. Absolutely. And you see it all the time. I'll go on Instagram and people share food that looks incredible. And I look at it and I'm like, you know what? I would definitely try this. And then a few weeks later, you'll see posts by the same restaurateur saying, I couldn't keep up with the demand of the ingredients and all these types of things that they hadn't considered before turning it into a commercial operation. Here's an example, actually, something that I've been working on a video script for, something that a cookie restaurant that opened a cookie store that opened here recently, that I actually reviewed out in California as well. And so there was a thing a couple of years ago, as we were all kind of locked in the house, It was called Cookie Therapy. And I did a video about them back in 2020. This cookie therapy ended up becoming super popular. From what I heard, people were lined up around the blocks to pick up the cookies and things like that. It turns out it was kind of a side gig for the two girls who had started it. So they decided that it became too much work to do this type of thing. Part of that is I think the problem is the hype of these kind of large format cookies. And then you become something that people rely on. Cookie therapy, that in concept is actually a pretty, it's going to hit home for people. People are going to want to, especially during that time, we were struggling. We didn't have the um, therapy at that time in 2020 was something that, people could rely on. People wanted. They were yearning for that. So you get this whole thing where, people love those. They were doing these big hype drops and all this stuff, and now you can't get them. They completely closed up their shop. I think they'll do shock drops here and there, but it's one of those things like, why am I going to support a business that I can't count on? It kind of they just decided it wasn't what they wanted to do. So yeah, just because you can make something and because you can make it good doesn't mean that it should be a business. You can be business minded and have a terrible product. Yeah, and I think in essence that's what I'm trying to say about this place, Cookie Therapy, is not that their product tasted terrible, just that the reliability of the product. If you're gonna close shop, that's a terrible product to me. If I can't get that whenever I want, or whenever it's convenient for everybody, that's kind of not what I want here. Tippy, how you doing, Tippy? My mom had a dog named Tippy growing up. That's kind of funny. And your avatar is a cat. Can you try Fat Boy Pizza in Colony? I'm afraid to try it myself. I got to be honest. I'm not familiar with it. So I'm going to, as soon as I wrap up this podcast, I'm going to open up Google and check it out. I work kind of close to Colony, so I could probably check that out. I'm thinking about doing kind of a pizza series. I'm in the infancy of the ideation of that. And with that, thank you so much for watching or listening to this week's podcast. If you're watching in the replay, I'll leave a link to that Mako's video so you can check that out. It's also down in the links below if you want to also see that. But thanks a lot. Thanks for hanging out, for you guys in the chat, and we will see you in the next one.